In the name of the I am that I am, I call forth the light of God that never fails. I call forth the light of beloved mighty Surya and Cuzco. I call forth the light of beloved Alpha and Omega. Blaze forth, O light of Alpha and Omega. Blaze forth, O light of Helios and Vesta. Blaze forth, O light of the great central sun magnet. In the name of Jesus, in the name of Saint Germain, in the name of the cosmic Christ, I call for the full gathered momentum of the violet flame from all hierarchies of light to merge now with our unified causal bodies, to hold the balance for world turmoil, chaos and confusion, and the rising tide of the dark cycle. Blaze for the light of the violet flame. Blaze for the light of the violet flame. Blaze for the violet flame. Blaze for the light of the violet flame. In the name of Jesus Christ, in the name of Sanat Kumara, lo, I and my Father are one. In the name of Gautama Buddha, lo, I and my Father are one. In the name of Lord Maitreya, lo, I and my Father are one. In the name of Jesus Christ, lo, I and my Father are one. In the name of the I am that I am, in the flame of Shambhala, I call forth the intensity of the ruby ray. I call forth the blue lightning and white fire from the Elohim of purity. I call for the full power of the seven mighty Elohim. I call for the full power of the legions of the god star Sirius, mighty Surya and Cuzco. Come forth now in thy flaming presence. O mighty action of the ruby ray, O mighty action of blue lightning and white fire, O mighty action of the violet flame, blaze forth now and intensify. Hold now the balance of world turmoil. Hold the balance against the conspiracy of the Watchers and the fallen ones. Bind their fallen consciousness, bind their human creation, bind their laggard creation, bind the cause and core of death and the death entity upon the planetary body, bind the cause and core of world communism, world terror through the KGB, bind the cause and core of world terror and world takeover through Marxist, Leninist doctrine, philosophy, demons, devils, discarnates, and hordes. Blaze for the light, blaze for the light, blaze for the light. Beloved mighty Saint Germain, hurl your mighty miracle bouch, hurl your mighty miracle bouch, hurl your mighty miracle bouch. I call for the great God flame in the heart of beloved Surya and Cuzco. I call for the balancing action. I call for the balancing action within our heart. I call for the balancing action within our heart. Expand, O mighty threefold flame. Expand, O mighty threefold flame. Expand, O mighty threefold flame, and let God's will be done. I demand action now for the holding of the balance in Cuba and the Caribbean. I demand the binding of that riptide. I demand the binding of the cause and core of that darkness. I demand the binding of the cause and core of the energy of Fidel and Raul Castro and the entire Soviet regime and Cuban troops and Soviet troops within Cuba, within the Caribbean, within South America. I demand the encirclement of their treachery and intrigue. I demand the encirclement of their plots at world takeover and the takeover of this hemisphere, Central and South America, El Salvador and Guatemala. Please, for the light of God that never fails, mighty Australians circle Nicaragua, mighty Australians circle them, seize, pin, and bind that momentum of human creation. Bind it right where it is this day. Bind it right where it is this day. Bind it right where it is this day. Draw it up in a mighty sphere. Draw it up in a mighty sphere. Draw it up in a mighty sphere and cast it in a lake of fire. By the full gathered momentum of the light of God that never fails. By the full power of the hierarchy of the ruby ray. I demand the hordes of world communism be stripped of their war and war entity, their death and death entity, their greed and their gluttony. Blaze with lightning the binding of God. I demand the binding of their lust for the blood of the saints. I demand the binding of the lust for the blood of Christ. I demand the binding of their lust for the light of God that never fails. I demand that they be encircled. I demand that they be bound. I demand that they be cast into the lake of fire. In the name of the I am that I am, I call forth in the name of the Father, in the name of the Son, and in the name of the Holy Spirit, in the name of the Mother. I demand the full power of the full cosmic force of this day. I demand the protection of the Caribbean. I demand the protection of every soul of light. I demand the protection of Miami and the entire East Coast. I demand the protection of every soul of light. I demand the protection of the United States of America. And I demand the enlightenment of our people through the clearing of the way of the astral hordes this day. In the name of the Father we call, in the name of the Son we call, in the name of the Holy Spirit we call. In the name of the Mother we call, in the name of the entire spirit of the rainbow, and the world Mother, element of life, fire, air, water, and earth, I call for the light of God that never fails, and together we say, the light of God never fails, the light of God never fails, the light of God never fails, and the beloved mighty I am presence is that light. The light of God never fails, the light of God never fails, the light of God never fails, and the beloved mighty I am presence is that light. The light of God never fails, the light of God never fails, the light of God never fails, and the beloved mighty I am presence is that light. Hail, Sheilas of the flame of freedom. Let us join together in addressing mighty Surya and Cuzco as we sing number 172. Won't you be seated?
The time is 12:44, as this little clock keeps the seconds for me here. And it is a very joyous moment to begin the thrust of light from the heart of Surya and Cuzco, who have sent me to you today to bring you the intense energy of the mighty blue flame and to give you their discourse on how better to use the blue flame and the white light. The mission of Surya and Cuzco is to hold the balance for the earth. As you know, the Ascended Master Cuzco is the Chela of beloved mighty Surya. Surya is the hierarch of the god star Sirius. His name, Surya, has been known since the very beginning of time and space and the creation of worlds. Just to pause for a moment and contemplate the God consciousness of Surya. It is an amazing experience. So vast is his soul awareness of God. Soul awareness is defined as the soul's self-awareness in God, in the spirit and the matter spheres. We have 3 levels of consciousness we pursue: the God consciousness of the I am that I am, the Christ consciousness of the Christ self, and soul consciousness, which we call solar, S-O-L-A-R, solar awareness. Solar awareness is the ability of the soul to define individuality in and of God. By that defining, refining, by the awareness of love in the soul chakra, we increase the magnet of the soul to magnetize the Christ consciousness and the I am that I am. The soul which has no soul awareness cannot inherit the Christ consciousness. It cannot inherit God consciousness. You are souls. You are here seeking to put on a greater awareness of God. Your awareness of God becomes your self-awareness. What you know about yourself in reality is what you know about God. The more you know about God, the more you know about yourself. And this self-awareness becomes the soul's awareness of individuality, which we call solar awareness. Solar because the soul is intended to become the sun of being, the very blazing sun of God consciousness in the matter sphere. The seat of the soul chakra is below the heart, signifying that we must draw down from the mighty I am presence, from the Christ self, the awareness of individuality. We all come to the feet of the masters with different types of a sense of individuality based on our education, our environment, our upbringing, our previous incarnations. So when we walk into the room, we have a sense of self and selfhood. Some of the concepts of self are entirely erroneous. They are a figment of our imagination. They are fantasies that come from living in a world that has much astral influence. Some of your self-awareness is pure God reality, and sometimes you don't even know that your self-awareness is pure God reality. And the fact that you don't know that a portion of what you understand to be yourself is that pure God reality means that you really do not have the God mastery of your soul awareness. It is not enough to have it. You must know that you have it. You must experience that you have it. You must be able to tell when the love you experience in your soul is the reality of God and when it is the unreality of the possessive carnal mind. If you don't know the difference, then when you are challenged by the fallen ones, they may succeed in taking from you your most precious diamonds and pearls and rubies, because you yourself have not yet assessed their value. And so you do not defend them adequately. You do not defend the pearl of great price. What is the pearl of great price for which the man went and sold all that he had so that he could get that pearl? The pearl of great price is your solar awareness. Because without it, you cannot graduate from this plane. You cannot merge. This pearl of selfhood cannot merge with the sphere of Christ consciousness. So it is the most important thing to get. With all thy getting, get self-understanding. This self-understanding becomes tangible and becomes a permanent part of your attainment when it is combined with the invocation of light, when it is reinforced with dynamic decrees, when the Holy Spirit is flooding that soul center so that what is real is fired by the sacred fire and made permanent, what is unreal is consumed. Then you are building a true pearl of great price, layer by layer. Now, the oyster cannot create a pearl without a grain of sand. Every pearl begins with a grain of sand. Your pearl of great price begins with the endowment of the potential. That potential is the single grain of sand. It's the point of your soul that comes forth from God. And as you increase solar awareness, you increase the grain of sand by placing around it layers and layers of your self-awareness in God. No other awareness will increase that point of identity. You can spend thousands of embodiments increasing in the wisdom of this world, its knowledge, its technology, its science. You may become of all people most learned. But if you do not know yourself as God, you have not increased your solar awareness. That pearl that you are building becomes a magnet. We know that smaller and greater magnets have lesser and greater power to magnetize lesser and greater objects. The soul is a magnet in matter, and it increases in its magnitude by the increase of your God self-awareness. So the soul is the focal point of your will to be. And that will pulls on God. Whatever violates your beingness, you get a resolve inside of you, you get a God determination, and you say, "Don't tread on me." And you refuse to allow the darkness of this world to trample upon this precious pearl. That is will. Proportionate to your will is your magnet. Proportionate to your magnet is your ability to magnetize Godhood. Your mighty I Am presence has the plus polarity of spirit. Your soul has the negative polarity. So the negative must be able to draw down the positive. The Christ self is the positive, and the I Am presence is the positive. So the pull of the soul is almost like the gravity of earth itself. It holds identity together. It holds the atmosphere to the earth. It's the will of the soul, magnetizing Godhood. Your solar awareness today is intended to be used as a balance for all of the people on the earth who have less solar awareness, less awareness of God reality here in the temple, not up there in the octaves of light, but right here. People upon the planet have very little solar awareness. But for every individual who contains that greater measure of selfhood which contact with the Great White Brotherhood brings, There is a focal point, there is a potential that is radiating into the atmosphere a greater sense of selfhood. And the masses of the people live and move in your aura, and they begin to increase in their sense of individuality proportionate to your own attainment. The lesser evolutions of any life wave always live off of the God consciousness, the solar awareness of the more advanced. What has happened to Earth and her evolutions today is that more people having the mass consciousness, which is by definition an absence of individual solar awareness, replaced by a collective consciousness at the level of the astral plane. That's the definition of the mass consciousness, where everybody becomes part of a mass, a conglomerate awareness, but very few people stand out as a single drop from the ocean, having a sense of individuality apart from the rest of the people. Most people today are highly dependent upon everybody else's consciousness, everybody else's human consciousness. They imitate the fads and the styles and the fashions. They wouldn't dream of being out of step. They wouldn't dream of being thought different or odd, because they would lose their identity. The only identity they have is the mass consciousness. You find teenagers in high school who are at that stage of their development formulating a keen sense of identity. And instead of formulating it, oftentimes they move together in groups and they have a group identity, all the way from the social society set to the street gangs. And they look for reinforcement because the identity of Christhood is in its formative stages. It's like a new childhood. It's like being born all over again when you return to the 12 o'clock line. At the age of 12, the age of 13, you come to the place where you have to be born again. And the next 12 years, the refinement of that identity is a supreme challenge. It's a very great challenge today, given the norms that have been set for that age group. So the point of identity, the point of individuality, the individual who has the courage to be himself, who does not fear to stand apart from the mass consciousness, is the individual who has summoned will, embodiment after embodiment, who has rubbed elbows with the adepts, who knows and understands the meaning of that grain of sand as that single point of light that can say, I am, and I have free will to be what I will to be. And so it takes a very determined, strong individual to break apart from the mass consciousness and to will to be different. Those souls of light who have adequate solar awareness and who can walk a path in consonance with the brotherhood, even when it demands being apart from the mass consciousness, are those who wind up being initiates of the Ascended Masters. The Ascended Masters of whom we would speak today are Surya and Cuzco. And their message is, with that of the entire hierarchy, we would increase light in the earth. We would that you should become electrodes for greater light, and we have some techniques to teach you on the holding together of that light. I'd like to show you my particular ball and chain, which I have. I wear it all of the time except when I must wear a microphone. And this particular ball happens to be our planetary home, the Earth. Holding the balance for the Earth is the primary responsibility and the mission of the messengers, holding the balance of planetary karma. So this year on my birthday, when my family asked me what I would like for my birthday, I said I would like a little gold charm of the planet Earth, because I saw the Earth in such distress that in addition to holding the balance, I wanted to hold the physical Earth on my heart. And that is what El Morya instructed me to do, to give me a greater focus of the Earth and a greater proximity to holding the balance for the dark cycle. So family and friends scoured all of Los Angeles and could not find a gold charm of the Earth. And so, in the course of the birthday celebrations on the lawn at Camelot, I spied a Chila who was wearing a gold earth around his neck. Where else to look for something that you want than in the heart of the Chila? The Chila looks in the heart of the Guru, and the Guru looks in the heart of the Chila. And in that mutual regard, we find all that we need for our life. And so, upon my statement of my need, he took off the charm and put it around my neck. The precious students of Montessori International made a pilgrimage to the statue of the Goddess of Liberty last year, and they brought me home a beautiful charm of the goddess. When I first began to wear the earth, I felt such an increase of burden as to be unimaginable. But when the students brought me the charm, and I put the charm with the earth, I found that the Goddess of Liberty was helping me hold up the earth. And the threefold flame of my heart, merging with her heart, increased the holding of the balance. Finally, on this chain, I added to it, at the recommendation of Linello, the bishop's ring, blessed by Lord Zadkiel, which is the amethyst that is always used to charge your amethysts. This is the ring that was charged by Lord Zadkiel in the very foundation of our movement. It was worn on the index finger of our beloved Linello. I could put about 3 fingers into it, and I still couldn't wear it. So it can never be worn by me on my hand, and so I can only wear it around my heart. So with this flaming focus of Lord Zadkiel and the Goddess of Liberty, I wear the earth around my neck. I make that point because Cuzco and Surya in this hour are very determined that we should all wear the earth about our neck, that we must hold the balance for earth and especially for the untransmuted energies of the earth. I'm going to see about having a smaller gold charm fabricated so that our Chilas may also share in carrying the planet as the symbol of our mission. This is Mission Terra, Mission Opportunity, Operation Deliverance, and we recognize that whenever the Ascended Masters ask us to carry a burden, they provide the corresponding burden of light. Speaking of the bearing of the burden of light, beloved Mother Mary counseled me many years ago to see to it that every child in Camelot wore a gold medal of herself around his or her neck. So all of the staff children received them that Christmas, and we have encouraged parents to keep them on the children. I myself would not be without the medal of Mother Mary, having her flaming presence at the heart chakra for the protection of the temple. Mark Prophet used to intrigue Chilas with his teachings on talismanic magic, which is simply the concept that matter can hold a force field of light, particularly when gold becomes the medium that is used for the image of the Virgin or of other ascended masters. Gold is precipitated sunlight, which is why it will always be the fulcrum of the economy of the earth, like it or not, the laggards. And therefore the gold medal and the visitations of the Blessed Virgin to various saints with the instruction that medals be fabricated and worn is certainly not a money scheme devised by the Roman Catholic Church or by the non-Catholics who capitalize upon the people's desire for medals. These medals are not to be worn with superstition, but with a supreme understanding taught to the Hindus thousands of years ago, that the image or likeness of the deity holds and is a chalice for the light of the deity. When there came rebellious and laggard generations who would worship the image instead of the deity, God set forth the commandment that no image of himself should be graven in stone or metal or in any form. Simultaneously with that teaching to the Israelites, God gave the teaching to the more ancient life waves of India to establish focuses of himself in the person of the various deities as statues and so forth. One of the initiations given to the Hindus is a certain ceremony whereby the statue is carried about, it is adored, one's devotion is given to it, and at the end of so many days, the statue is cast into the Ganges and it is destroyed, to teach the individual that it is not the statue, but its force field and focal point for the Godhead that is important. And therefore, as one is able to pour forth devotion to the heart symbolized in the statue, one is also able to pour it forth to the universal without the form. So unless we are able to surrender the form and the matrix, whether it be of a statue, whether it be of the person of a loved one who must take leave of this octave, whether it be of our possessions, whether it be of Camelot, whether it be of whatever we may have, unless we can be just stewards and care for it lovingly as though it were God, and then the moment that God withdraws the flame, unless we are able to cast it into the flame, we ourselves cannot say that we are non-attached, that we can either have the form or the formlessness. People think that non-attachment or an absence of possessiveness means that we should lead an entirely impersonal life, that we should not love personally, we should not have devotion to one another, we should not adequately care for material objects entrusted to us. But matter is just the other side of spirit in frequency. It is God. Everything that we have should be honored as His substance. And therefore, we should only have those things for which we can adequately care. Otherwise, we should not have them. So reverence for God, animate and inanimate, is important. At the same time that we know that it is God, God, God whom we adore, and at any moment, should we be deprived of such things, it would not make a particle of difference. The moving stream of devotion moves on, just like the great Mother Ganges, just like the great crystal river of life. So the bearing of the burden of the planet. I gave to you the instruction of placing your hands over the globe, visualizing the earth, visualizing the areas where world communism, with a conspiracy of monopoly capitalism, has had its greatest stronghold and has taken over. This intimate contact with the planet and with planetary energies results in a release upon the individual Chila of inordinate tides of energy, of compacted darkness that exists as a coiled spring in the astral plane. As long as it is sealed, it is like the sleeping serpent. When it is awakened, it springs forth to attack. Vortices of this energy can suddenly descend upon the unwary Chila as a lashback, and therefore it can give to the Chila a setback and cause him to lose his harmony. Therefore, as a part of the seminar of Beloved Liberty, Surya and Cuzco have asked me to deliver to you a two-part instruction on the subject of riptides. Riptides. This instruction was first released in 1962 in the Pearls of Wisdom, the same year which gave to us the great document from Saint Germain, Studies in Alchemy. This is volume 5, pearl number 2 and pearl number 3. The name of this two-part series is Riptides, and the first part is entitled Count to 9 in Time. Hail, Chilas of the light! Hail, light! I am resolved with a determination of God to herein illumine mankind with understanding about riptides, their cause, effect, and control in everyday living upon earth. I will do this because mankind's energy often manifests in opposition to the light, and this is directly the fault of imposing impure thought and feelings upon that powerful and precious divine energy which men use and take so for granted. The thought form for the year, which beloved Gautama described so well in his New Year's address, is a golden spinning wheel. The thought form for the year 1962, a golden spinning wheel, releasing a golden thread of pure radiant energy to each life stream to manifest as his apportioned substance. The 9 spokes of the wheel are indicative of the 7 members of the karmic board, and includes also beloved Gautama, Lord of the world, and blessed Saint Germain, who are spokesmen for the great white brotherhood throughout the golden age. This golden thread, symbolical of each man esteeming his life energy as obedient substance, subjective with joy to God's will, shall be used in the golden age to weave garments of immortality to endure as Christ's accomplishment in a living memorial to God's honor flame. This golden thread is the thread of solar awareness, of the soul identity. And the symbology of the spinning wheel is the weaving of, the creating of the thread with the spinning wheel, of the radiant energy that becomes the solar consciousness through contact with the central sun by this thread of life, which is also symbolical of the thread of contact of which Almoria speaks, the thread of contact to the initiates. And so the initiates here are the 9 spokes of this spinning wheel, the karmic board, Gautama, and Saint Germain. 9 personages through whose initiation the soul may form the thread, and the thread becomes identity. Therefore, you see, on the path of initiation, soul identity cannot be increased except through the Guru-Chela relationship with the Ascended Masters. This is the universal scheme of hierarchy, that we increase God consciousness through this golden thread that is one throughout all universes with every part of life who has ever attained God consciousness. Those 9 spokes contain in their causal bodies the record of all other attainment of all other life waves. So when you go through key representatives of the brotherhood who have great attainment themselves, whose causal bodies are one with all others, and you become their chelas, you see how you increase in God identity through the collective spirit of the great white brotherhood, the Holy Spirit consciousness of all ascended beings. And so it is true that when you call upon one key, one ascended master like Saint Germain or Gautama, who is truly the key in the arch, the keystone, through that keystone you have contact with millions, literally millions, of ascended beings. The ascended masters have revealed to us only a certain few names of ascended masters, probably numbering about 200. But there are millions and millions of ascended masters. Those key names are links in this universal chain of hierarchy. And so that is the meaning of the golden spinning wheel and the thread. The thread is for you to build solar awareness by individual contact with all life through these 9 masters. Riptides, however, are created by wrong thoughts and feelings, which gain momentum in both a centripetal and centrifugal action. Only the two-edged sword of blue flame is effective in wholly counteracting such viciousness. In order to counteract malicious human forces, it is mandatory that students call upon Archangel Michael, beloved mighty Astrea, and Prince Aramesis. This is a very important paragraph in this very important instruction. First of all, we find that a riptide, by definition, is created by wrong thought and feeling, which means it is a manipulation of the mental body, which has a plus polarity of alpha, and it is a manipulation of the feeling body, which has the minus polarity of omega on our cosmic clock. Hence, a riptide is a total misqualification of the Father, Mother, God. Thought and feeling becoming a single vortex with both centrifugal and centripetal action, able then, in and of itself, to precipitate sudden inharmony. Now, beloved Cuzco says, only the two-edged sword of blue flame is effective in wholly counteracting such viciousness. By this instruction, we learn why Archangel Michael and the hosts of the Lord wield two-edged swords. One side for the remagnetization of the misused energy of alpha, the other side for the remagnetization of misused energy of omega. And so you also find that this is why that two-edged sword was used to keep the way of the tree of life, keep the guard on the Garden of Eden. And thirdly, we learn that to counteract malicious human forces, we must call upon these three beings, Michael, Astrea, and Prince Aramesis. Now, I am constantly calling upon these three beings, but I did not specifically remember that I learned to do so in this Pearl of Wisdom of January 12th, 1962. You come to understand that when you read and study the pearls, they become a part of yourself, and you move on, self-containing that instruction. It is now a part of your solar awareness. You may not always know the source because it has been woven into this beautiful lustrous pearl of the rainbow energy of the resurrection spiral. Archangel Michael then and his legions wield the two-edged sword of blue flame, Astrea, the circle and sword of blue flame, and cosmic white fire with the blue lightning. Prince Aramesis comes with billions of fiery salamanders. I want you to get into the habit of thinking of billions of elementals, no less. When you are working for the Great White Brotherhood, and when you look at the forces of planetary darkness, you realize that elementals are the most numerous of all members of the Great White Brotherhood. There are billions and billions and billions of elementals in the four kingdoms serving the earth. And each fiery salamander is anywhere from 9 to 24 feet high, a pillar of resurrection flame, intensifying to all of the colors of the causal body, and then again appearing as pure white fire, intensity accelerated for the consuming of certain darkness. These beings stand tall, they surround you, and when you invoke them intensely into an action, they fill the entire sanctuary, the entire property, they fill the geographical area, and then you see them standing as millions, billions of fiery salamanders. And they burn through, they are the action of the sacred fire, and they consume and consume and consume, while Archangel Michael's legions are plunging their swords of blue flame into the cause and core of this plus-minus polarity riptide. A riptide may be like a tornado, a vortex of energy, or it may be a riptide that is congruent with form, the form of a devil, the form of a demon, the form of a false hierarch. Mighty Astrea encircles and holds and binds the force so that the legions of Michael and Aramesis may perform their work, and ultimately Astrea seizes that in that whirling circle of blue flame, which will become as small as necessary to bind a microbe or a virus in your body, and as large as is necessary to encircle a planet or a solar system or a galaxy. It's an automatic lasso of light. It clamps around what must be removed, and it whirls. It whirls faster than the speed of light, and it simply lifts that substance, draws it into a mighty blue sphere, and takes it to the place of universal solvency, which is called the lake of fire in the book of Revelation. It is a vortex, a flaming vortex of sacred fire that is so huge that it looks like a giant lake. And that human creation is cast into the lake of fire by these beings of light, and many legions assisting them in answer to your call. When you do not make the call, they do not answer, and the conditions persist on the planet, and so they do today. Cuzco continues. You have observed the action of cyclonic winds, also the terror left in the wake of tornadoes. These natural forces are puny beside the insidious, invisible malice of humanly created riptides. Now I wish to make clear that individuals are often totally ignorant of the fact that they are being used, to feed their energy into and sustain any negative action. But it is happening hourly to many loving, innocent people who are simply the victims of their own ego. These dear ones are trapped because they become the center of self-attention, self-pity, and the obsession that they are being neglected. Why does an individual become the victim of his ego, hence the victim of riptides? Because he is trapped in this sense of himself as the center of attention. Self-attention instead of solar awareness, instead of a universal awareness of God as the true self. He has himself as the center of the universe. He has replaced God with himself. The second is self-pity. Once you have a self to become the center of the universe, it is very easy to feel sorry for that self, as so many people upon earth are. And while you are sorry for the self, you are engaged in a perpetual round of trying to do something for that self that will ease this sense of self-pity. So you see, you cannot be the bodhisattva when you are the center of attention and the center of self-pity. The bodhisattva is the one who lives to set all life free. So part of the psychology taught by the Ascended Masters is to get rid of the hang-ups of self-centeredness outside of God, to replace it with the God consciousness of self-centeredness, where God becomes the center of your soul and the sun of your soul. And finally, the obsession that you are being neglected. Now this is a very subtle point of moods, depressions, naughtiness, misbehavior, failure. When a child is neglected by his parents from conception to age 7, he will often spend his entire life trying to make up for that neglect by creating all kinds of circumstances and conditions where he will now become the center of attention and no longer be neglected. You find this psychology all over. You find it on the path, you find it in people who are not on the path. In order to get that attention, they will do anything. Anything from spilling a glass of milk to murder, to rape, to crimes of violence, to insanity, anything to get the parental attention that they did not get. So the sense of being neglected can make you feel crestfallen, can make you feel burdened, gloomy, sad, distressed, and in that point of consciousness, you are vulnerable to riptides. vortices of intensely vicious energy moving like clouds move in the sky, moving around the earth through the astral belt. Now I want you to know those 3 points because the contents of this lecture will be on Friday's quiz. You will have to know what I'm speaking about and what I'm going over. You are trapped by riptides because you have become the center of self-attention, because of self-pity, and because you have the obsession that you are being neglected. A constant flow of attention, unless it be upon the heights of its own divinity, is diverted to the lower octaves of human thought and feeling, where like attracts like. Vibrations of discord seek out and unite with their kind, and in this union form huge astral pools of inky, negatively qualified, electrically charged substance, which sometimes becomes immense in size, grossly concentrated in density, and has an intense whirling action. It whirls because it is electrically charged. It whirls because it is a perversion of alpha and omega. Alpha and omega in polarity in the great hub of the universe actually create the turning of worlds. The very rhythm of the turning of cosmos is because of the Tai Chi, of the perfect polarity of the Father, Mother, God. So whatever is in polarity whirls. You get a perversion of that polarity in a riptide, it is also whirling. It is a vortex of energy. Such disturbing astral conditions, without form or goodness, roam the atmosphere of Earth like will-o'-the-wisps, and are especially attracted to all forms of negative thought, feeling, or action. By too much attention on the outer self, students tend to open their doors to these human creations. One reason why self-attention opens the door is because when you place attention on the outer self, you are on the periphery of yourself. It's like living on the surface of the earth. It's the most vulnerable point of the earth. And the outer self is your most vulnerable point. Whereas when you place attention on God, you're going within to the very center of the light in your heart. And that is the point of your invincibility, your invulnerability. So when you get detached from this mother lode, this mother flame in the center, it's like getting detached from a mother ship. It's like drifting away into outer space with no moorings and no tie. So when something comes along, it can sweep you up because you are now a victim of outer space. Time and space are the only place where you can be vulnerable to anything that is of the energy veil. There's a point in you that is beyond time and space. Did you know that? You have a point of infinity. It is the secret chamber of the heart. It is the chamber behind the heart. And it's that point of meditation. God has sealed there, you might even say hermetically sealed, a point of infinity that is not time and space. And when you meditate and you go to that place, you have the equivalent of going to the central sun or going to the heart of your I Am Presence. And it is your refuge. It is also the center of the cross. The cross is a cross defining the coordinates of time and space. But when you are centered, you are not part, really, of either arm. You are part of infinity. So when you are in consciousness in the limitations of time and space, by outer attention upon the outer self, it's like sticking your head out to get it chopped off, sticking out your neck to get your head chopped off. Beloved Cuzco says, I am requested by the Karmic Board and the Darjeeling Council to call these matters to the attention of the student body, so that they may acquire the wisdom of serpents and be as harmless as doves. Some of you are too harmless. You are harmless when it comes to aggressive mental and astral energies. And so to be doves with the wisdom of serpents means the dove of the Holy Spirit has contained within itself the coiled serpent of the Kundalini fire, the real energy of the Father, Mother, God, ready on a moment's notice to be released to consume anything unlike itself. When in the grip of such concentrations of fierce energy, many who do not understand their own being or the law which governs it have committed many vicious acts of violence for which they were later heartily sorry. I certainly do not propose to draw the attention of the students to these conditions, but I am lovingly interested in their proper understanding of the law of life as it relates to mankind's use of God's energy upon earth. Such knowledge is essential to mastery for those who are at present often victims instead of victors. Victims instead of victors over all forms of control, hypnotism, suggestion, vortices of specific negative energy, and other undesirable conditions, the source of which is simply man's misqualification of God's pure energy. This week, as a loving ascended being, I am offering to you my assistance in governing all wrong conditions which would not prove helpful in winning your freedom or obtaining your ascension in the light. Primarily, blessed ones, understanding the old saying, count to 10 before you speak or release your thoughts or feelings out into the world, was first released as count to 9 in time, and was later changed by men who thought their own knowledge of English to be superior and did not understand the symbolic ritual which I release herewith and which was lost to them. The count to 9 in time imparts the power of the 3 times 3 and is the ritual for encircling your being with light's protection. Immediately when wrong vibrations are sensed, start this action of the sacred fire. At the first, second, and third count, encircle your abdomen with white fire to govern the feeling body. Whenever you release uncontrolled energy, whenever you have ever been angry in your life, your solar plexus has been triggered by a thought that entered your mind. Your mind was seized with a sense of injustice, and instantly the trigger from the mental body to the emotional body, and the solar plexus erupts, and out comes the tirade through the mouth of whatever follows suit in that manifestation of anger. It can be controlled. It begins with the will. You cannot even follow the exercise of count to 9 in time if you are not willing to harness that energy before it is spoken, before you commit the act of karma which makes it concrete, letting your blessed throat chakra, which is the mouth of God, become the orifice of anger, hatred, condemnation, criticism, violent words, blaspheming the name of God, etc. Now, this is the most fundamental exercise on the path. If you are still subject to a riptide that can hit the mind and the solar plexus almost simultaneously, almost like striking 2 notes on the piano, one on the left hand, one on the right, and suddenly that energy is in motion, and before you know it, you are in the very center of the vortex of the riptide, and the riptide will expend itself by pressing through your chakras, chiefly through the mouth in the word and through the solar plexus as this immense eruption, this volcanic eruption where the intense feelings come forth through you. Now that is what it feels like to get caught by a riptide, when you become completely possessed by a feeling of anger and you enter into it and you express it. Anger is a very easy one to study, but there are other kinds of riptides. There's a riptide of fear, where you are totally gripped and seized by fear, with all kinds of physical symptoms, which can even result in fainting or a heart attack. You notice you go into a sweat, you may become ill, very physically ill, in the stomach, where the solar plexus chakra is. You may begin to tremble, you may become suddenly cold. That is a vortex of fear. Then there is a vortex and a riptide of the weeping entity, where you go into uncontrollable fits of weeping and crying. And that is because through the conditions of openness, which I have described and Cuzco has called to your attention, your physical body actually becomes congruent with an astral riptide. You know that airplane pilots are taught to avoid certain types of clouds. Other types of clouds, they fly right through. But certain storm centers and vortices of energy, they must avoid. Because if a plane goes into one of those, it can be instantaneously dismembered and destroyed. You can speculate as to whether or not the Bermuda Triangle is such a vortex of energy. A vortex so intense that things actually disappear from this particular band of time and space. Now, Surya and Cuzco have selected the chelas of the Ascended Masters to hold an extraordinary light and to take upon themselves the burden of holding the balance of world karma in the dark cycle. Oftentimes, we sit and give the violet flame, we give our decrees, and we transmute that energy just like you would lower a reservoir. A certain amount of the energy goes down by the decrees that are given. At other times, that energy does not come in the form of simply a layer or a level of human consciousness. It comes to you as a seething riptide. Many times, because that energy must be transmuted, you will find yourself suddenly seized upon by some individual who is violently attacking you for no reason at all. You have done nothing. All of a sudden, you are held up, and this pouring energy that I've described now is coming to you through someone else. And you're standing there, and your chakras are hanging open, your mouth is hanging open, and you begin to get butterflies in the belly, and you can't even imagine what kind of energy this is or why this individual is engaged in such anger, and your knees begin to tremble. And oftentimes parents, when scolding children because they're not God-centered, will become so angry with a child at something he has done that they themselves become seized of riptides. They pour torrents of condemnation and energy upon their children, and they think they have acted rightly as parents. You can never discipline a child when you are in the grips of anger or condemnation or hatred or a sense of injustice. You may have a feeling that a child has done wrong. It must be in absolute God control, so that when you open your mouth, the pure white fire of firmness, coupled with love, coupled with wisdom, enough white fire to bring that child to attention, to let him know that he is being pulled out of a wrong matrix and into a right matrix, that he respects the authority, but not misqualified energy that strips the child of his identity, makes him to fear and hate authority, does not give him the wisdom teaching that must accompany every discipline, and does not allow the child to feel loved. The only person who can properly discipline a child is a person who loves that child so much that he will not allow that child to be caught or lost in a lesser vibration. And from that point comes this immense firmness of the father himself, the mother herself, speaking through you to a child. Well, everyone is a child. And if you have a fault to find with your neighbor, or you realize that someone is acting improperly, even if that someone is in the grips of a riptide, you must see to it that you do not engage in the riptide by joining in the argument. If someone comes at you in that way and you start yelling back, then you create a tie to the person of a figure-8 flow, and now the riptide is coming into you. And pretty soon you're both in this riptide, and now you're in a polarity, and the thing may wind up being a fist fight or a shooting or a shootout or whatever, because both sides now become gripped and they go into a polarity, and they're in an opposite polarity, again usurping the polarity of alpha and omega. And that polarity then, once it starts, it goes on until it expends itself. This is the nature of a riptide. If you allow it to enter your temple, it is the very, very rare person who can then suddenly stop it. You have to stop it before it enters by recognizing that it exists and sealing your chakras. Just like sealing the doors and windows of your house in a hurricane, battening down the hatches of a boat. When you get ready for a storm, the blessed lotus of the self closes, you go within, and you start intensifying the light of the central sun in the perfect polarity of alpha and omega. A good mantra to use is the mantra to Helios and Vesta, because it's the perfect polarity and the vibration of the sun in the center of this solar system, and we are natives of that sun. It is like our own vibration. So Helios and Vesta will bring you into that balance. Now the temptation when in the presence of someone else who has a riptide is to get into the argument, prove that you're right, and have the last word. And of course everyone wants to have the last word. But Moria says that the chelas of the light should rather prefer to have the last laugh. And the last laugh is the joy of the victor who has not engaged himself in the riptide. The reason this instruction is so important today is because when you have extraordinary light, you are expected to bear the burden of extraordinary darkness. This darkness will come in two ways: as a steady flow of a sewer of misqualified energy, as density, as the animal magnetism that just kind of makes people go dense, get very ignorant, get very clumsy, and that is kind of passive. It's passive energies of the dark cycle. Then you have the aggressive energies as riptides. You must know how to handle both, or you will set yourself back, and sometimes very far back on the path, because these riptides are so vicious and so destructive that when you allow them to enter, they can literally shatter the force field of the aura, and you're starting at point zero again to build that force field. You may have been decreeing for 6 weeks, and you can go into a tirade where you have an experience of almost insanity, let's say for 2 or 3 minutes. You start to rant and rave and get totally out of your God harmony. That has a very deleterious effect on the aura and on the chakras. And you must have greater wisdom than to allow yourself to believe that that was your own energy and that you have a right to express your own energy. Riptides do not come from yourself. They come from without. And they are there as surely as the dark clouds of storm and the tornadoes are in the physical atmosphere. They are in the astral atmosphere of the planet. So the first step, when you're counting to 9 before you speak, and it's a very slow count, it can be accompanied with taking a deep breath. A deep breath will tend to allow you to calm yourself. When you get excited and nervous, sometimes your heart beats a little faster. When you get a sense of anger, you're breathing very fast, and so you get quiet and you take a deep breath. You let it out slowly, and you feel this balance of this breath going all the way through the cavity, the chest cavity and the abdomen. And that sacred fire breath, visualized as the breath of the Holy Spirit, has a great calming action. And it's a moment of decision of God mastery, when whatever is triggering, you refuse it to allow to be expressed because you refuse to speak. The decision to open your mouth may often be the decision when it's all over. Once you've opened your mouth and begun to engage with an individual or a condition, you'll find yourself immediately getting into the tumble. You're drawn right into the tumble of the energy. So you count silently and slowly to yourself while you breathe. And the first 3 counts, you are visualizing a very intense belt of white fire around the solar plexus, so that this vortex of anger may not make contact with your solar plexus. You visualize it, and when you say 1, it goes around once. You visualize this white sphere drawn around you. 2, and it goes around again. 3, it goes around again, and you feel yourself sealed by the power of the 3, which is always the power of the Trinity. And you can say, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. It's always important to say the Trinity, counting those 3 times. When you come to the 4th count, Cuzco says, at the 4th, 5th, and 6th count, encircle the throat with white fire to govern the form, to govern the physical form. Why is it governing the physical form of the throat chakra? Because whatever you speak ultimately becomes physical form somewhere, somehow. Everything you have ever spoken since the moment you descended from God has contributed to the creation of yourself. It's amazing, isn't it? Your facial features, your body, your environment, the earth itself is the collective consciousness of the people that has been spoken, because without the word, spirit is not made flesh, it is not made matter. So your physical form is guarded by the guarding of the throat chakra. And we know that the solar plexus is in polarity with the throat chakra. The solar plexus is the chakra immediately below the heart. The throat chakra is the chakra immediately above the heart. So they form a figure 8 between the 2, which passes through the heart. So you express your most tender feelings through worded expression, through poetry and through song. You express feelings of authority and government through the spoken word. And that is an interaction of your feelings refined by the Christ flame in the heart when used correctly. The greatest orators, the people who have the greatest ability to communicate, are those who have the purest feelings, which are refined constantly by the flow of the feelings through the heart. So those who love most are those who can speak best. That is on the path. You have the perversion of that, and of course you get the tyrants and the people like Hitler who totally misuse the throat chakra. Listening to a tape of Adolf Hitler will give you the ultimate misuse of the throat chakra and of the solar plexus for manipulation. So 4, 5, and 6, it's once around, twice around, 3 times around. Again, the Trinity, 4, 5, and 6 around the throat. So immediately you have sealed the solar plexus and the throat chakra to guard against these feelings that are in a state of agitation, becoming words that you will later wish you had never said, words that become things that you would like to recall, and that will take a great amount of violet flame to erase from the planet. And the moment they are spoken, they go forth to harm other parts of life far beyond the immediate individual who may be the object of the anger. Third, with the 7th, 8th, and 9th count, encircle the head with white fire to govern the mental body. So you see a band of white fire right over the 3rd eye, which is at the point in the center of the brow. It's not up in the center of your forehead. It's right at the center of the brow, right here. And so the band goes right around the entire head. So it's the sealing of the 3rd eye, especially, and the crown chakra. So what does it do to seal the 3rd eye? It seals your vision. Right in the midst of the most terrible calamity that may be happening, your vision is fixed on your mighty I Am presence. And when you refuse to engage your attention upon discord by meditating on your I Am presence, that discord cannot come into your world. When you go to a movie, you're using your vision. And you can sit there and watch an intensely emotional movie, take the whole thing in through your eyes, and you notice all the things that happen to your body. How you can get tense during the chase scene, and you can start to sweat as someone is about to be killed, and there's all this intense music playing. All of that is coming into your chakras, and of course you can watch yourself being manipulated. You can watch the law of energy, and then you can decide whether or not you want to be manipulated. And most people enjoy being manipulated. They enjoy the feeling of excitement. They enjoy the feeling of the glands and the nervous system and the heart and everything that happens when they go to horror movies or mystery stories or violence or sex, or all of these things are a stimulation of energy. And people like to feel energy flowing, even if it's putrid, even if it's astral, even if it tears them down. It's something happening within their temple. And ordinarily, nothing much happens, because they don't decree, they don't place their attention upon God, so they don't have the daily feeling of the flow of the Holy Spirit, the rising of the Kundalini, the resurrection flame, the joy billowing through the consciousness. And so that experience, of course, enables us to be partakers of life. And since they don't know that life, they have to create another life, which they call life, but which is really the death cult. And the death cult consists of the movement of energy within the temple, but the spirals are downward. They are disintegrating because they are discordant. Things disintegrate because they are not in the balance of alpha and omega. So people who haven't experienced the flow of an ascended master dictation may sit in a seance or get psychic channeling, and they may tell you all about the energy that they feel. And they are feeling energy. They're feeling a very dirty energy, the waters of the astral plane flowing through their chakras. And that is what they experience. They've never known the elixir of the cup of life. They don't know any difference, so they think because energy is moving, that God must be there. And so, because people think God is there wherever energy moves, it comes down to whatever kind of excitement they feel is exciting enough, and they name it God. And we have rock stars telling us that the sexual experience itself is God. Well, their concept is a very perverted one. We know that the life force is God. It is Alpha and Omega, intended to rise. But that has been labeled as the communion experience, as was mentioned by Jean Vossler in his analysis of the decadent culture of the British Isles. So be careful that you do not interpret every movement of energy in your being as God. All energy is God. We already know that. That is elementary. Right, Watson? It's elementary. All energy is God, and just because all energy is God doesn't mean to say that all energy produces God consciousness. There's a lot of misqualified energy moving around. So then Cuzco says, as you do this 3 times for each of your 3 lower vehicles, you will have absolute protection by the power of the 3 times 3 for your etheric body, which will remain secure in the immaculate concept while the riptides of life continue to blast around you. The fact that they're around you is one thing, but you can control whether or not they enter you and become a part of you. The value of this ritual to you will be your freedom from the power men give to wrong conditions, and that protection which the Great White Brotherhood desires all sincere students to have. As a matter of fact, until you master yourself enough to not allow the riptide to enter, you do not have the full protection of the Great White Brotherhood. Now, some people have such a conditioned response to riptides, and we are told that sometimes that conditioned response has to do with hypoglycemia, conditions of low blood sugar, when people allow themselves to become regularly excited to pump up their adrenals so they get enough energy flowing through them so that they feel good. People often feel good when they've become angry, and they do so with regularity. And so when it becomes a pattern that people get involved with various types of riptides, then it is that within your temple you start to harbor discarnate entities and demons. Because you've done it so many times, they have entered your astral body. And because your vibration is no different than theirs and you allow yourself to be trampled upon, they take up a permanent abode within your force field. It's like fleas living on a dog. It's like any kind of parasite that we know of in the physical plane that lives off of another part of life. Discarnate entities and demons are native to the astral plane. If your astral body or your emotional body is a sewer for planetary emotions, then whatever is flowing in the sea of the planet is also flowing through your astral body. And this may be not entirely, you may not be entirely wed to the totality of the mass consciousness, but you may have a portion of that astral body which has an affinity for various forms of discord. And through that, there is flowing through you the regular water that's in the sea. It's like going into the ocean. If you drink the water, you drink the whole sea. You become a part of it if you let that water flow through you. You can let that water be outside of you, or you can let it be inside of you. But once it's inside of you, anything that's in it is liable to come into your astral body. You can't screen it out anymore. Once you're open to it, you could be suddenly subject to any kind of violence. If you allow yourself to be subject to weeping entities, you may find yourself someday in the grips of much more malevolent forces than mere weeping entities. So you must not trifle with the emotional body. The desire body is the great body intended to be used and intended to be filled with God's desire, God's desiring to be God. And it must be purified for you to become an initiate of the brotherhood. No ascended master will take you on individually as a Chela unless you master this particular problem. He cannot trust you if you are subject to the whim and the whimperings of astral hordes. And to control a riptide is a conscious decision to love God more than that ego that wants to be important for a few moments and release all this misqualified energy and watch everybody else tremble and collapse in the face of this torrent of hatred. When it comes down to it, allowing a riptide into your world is an ego trip. And it's an attention-getting device by the poor, impoverished ego that thinks that it has never gotten enough attention from the Father, Mother, God. Well, the soul then has to have a greater will than the ego. And some people have far more powerful egos than they do souls. They have taken God's energy to build a powerful ego instead of taking his energy to build a powerful soul. We think of people we admire and we say, oh, he is a great soul. People have said that of the Pope. He's a beautiful soul. We think of many fine people that have that quality. Immediately in their presence, we sense the soul. Other people we meet, we say, oh, he's a tyrant. He's an egomaniac. Because immediately in the aura, you sense the ego. The individual who has a powerful soul and great solar awareness attracts angels, because angels have the frequency of the desire body. They serve the feelings. They impart hope and joy and faith and kindness and compassion and love. And when you have those pure qualities in your feeling body, they increase them, they multiply them. So the soul who is the saint, the soul who retains its innocence, innocence by definition of El Moria is inner sense. The soul who retains its innocence, its inner sense of God, is always magnetizing angelic reinforcements. When you are around such souls, you have a sense that things seem to just happen in the right order for those people. They have grace. The hierarchy serves them because they have served the light. People who have instead built up this ego, and who use the astral body to constantly reinforce the ego, who will take a riptide because they enjoy the energy, they lust after it, those people then have legions of demons and entities that serve their power center. It is in the interests of demons and entities to cluster around the ego-type person, to reinforce the ego, because when that ego is in control of other people who have lesser egos or lesser soul awareness, not enough soul awareness to counteract the ego, then the demons and entities that are behind the principal person having the ego can steal the light of everyone else. You get a very dominant personality who is an ego type, and he will have everybody manipulated, everybody eating out of his hand, and when he's high, everybody's high, and when he's low, everybody's low, and people just follow these personality cult people around, and so do the hordes of demons and entities, and they are the ones that siphon off the light of the children of God. And so the ego types cleverly, of course, conceal their egos, and they may appear to be very humble. Some of them are the false gurus, some of them are politicians, some of them are heads of corporations, big business people, and anybody you might meet. People who have serious psychological problems so as to be termed psychologically ill also have the ego problem as well as the demon and entity problem. And that ego problem may manifest as an extreme inferiority complex. But behind the extreme inferiority complex is this massive sense of self-importance. And it's just a pendulum swing away that the person of no sense of ego swings to this omnipotent ego. It's the two sides of the same coin, and it's the same problem. Ego has displaced the soul. The pearl of wisdom that you receive this week from Sanat Kumara deals very explicitly with this subject of possession in the series on casting out of devils. Cuzco concludes this pearl by saying, "Next week I shall continue with my instruction on riptides and tell you more concerning how the student body can assist us in bringing greater freedom to the earth during this year of great destiny. I am yours mightily in the light, Cuzco." Let us take our decree books and turn to the Count to 9 decree. 0.10. The instructions, which I read you from the Pearl, are to the right of the main three sections, 1, 2, and 3, the solar plexus, 4, 5, and 6, the throat chakra, and 7, 8, and 9, the third eye. The beginning and the ending visualizations are also noted. This Pearl was released by beloved Cuzco with the second Pearl in the series, which I'm going to take up with you tomorrow. There's an immense amount of light that has been released to you in this instruction, and it has indeed filled the cup of your being and given you all that you require today to assimilate. So we're going to conclude this delivery of the word with the giving of 0.10. Let's begin with a deep breath. Together.
In the name of the beloved, mighty, victorious presence of God, I am in me, my very own beloved, holy Christ self, beloved Archangel Michael, Prince of Ramesses, mighty Estrella, Goddess of Light, beloved Ascended Master Cuzco, beloved Lanello, the entire spirit of the great white brotherhood in the world, Mother, element of life, fire, air, water, and earth, I decree. Come now, by love divine, guard thou this soul of mine, make now my world all thine, God's light around me shine. I count 1, it is done, no feeling, world be still. 2 and 3, I am free, peace, it is God's will. I count 4, I do adore my presence all divine. 5 and 6, oh God, I fix my gaze on thee sublime. I count 7, come, O heaven, my energies take hold. 8 and 9, completely thine, my mental world and flow. The white firelight now encircles me, all riptides are rejected. With God's own might around me bright, I am my love protected. Come now, my love divine, guard thou this soul of mine. Make now my world all thine, God's light around me shine. I count 1, it is done, no feeling will be still. 2 and 3, I am free, peace, it is God's will. I count 4, I do adore my presence all divine. 5 and 6, oh God, I fix my gaze on thee sublime. I count 7, come, O heaven, my energies take hold. 8 and 9, completely thine, my mental world in tow. The white firelight now encircles me, all riptides are rejected. With God's own might around me bright, I am thy love protected. Come now, my love divine, guard thou this soul of mine. Make now my world all thine, God's light around me shine. I count 1, it is done, no feeling will be still. 2 and 3, I am free, peace, it is God's will. I count 4, I do adore my presence all divine. 5 and 6, oh God, I fix my gaze on thee sublime. I count 7, come, O heaven, my energies take hold. 8 and 9, completely thine, my mental will and tow. The white firelight now circles me, all riptides are rejected. With God's own might around me bright, I am thine and protected. Come now, my love divine, God, thou the soul of mine. Make now my world of thine, God's light around me shine. I count 1, it is not no feeling where be still. 2 and 3, I am free, peace, it is God's will. I count 4, I do it, my presence all divine. 5 and 6, oh God, I fix my gaze on thee sublime. I count 7, come, O heaven, my energies take hold. 8 and 9, completely thine, my mental will and flow. The white firelight now circles me, all riptides are rejected. With the other might around me bright, I am well protected. I accept this done right now with full power. I am this done right now with full power. I am God, life expressing perfection always at all times. This which I call forth for myself, I call forth for every man, woman, and child on this planet. And in full faith I consciously accept this manifest. And in full faith I consciously accept this manifest. Right here and now with full power, eternally sustainable power there, ever expanding in world and with all our holy ascend in the light and tree. Beloved I am, beloved I am, beloved I am.
The teaching that has been given for the turning away of riptides comes to us in the words, "A soft answer turneth away wrath." I spoke to you about not opening your mouth and engaging in argument. It may become necessary to turn away the wrath of an evildoer or of an illogical scheme of someone who is completely off of the track of logic. And so the soft answer is a very quiet, slow, deliberate answer. It might be, "Thank you very much. I am quite all right." It might be a very simple word of wisdom. Simply saying, "I am sorry, but you must have the wrong person. It was not I whom you saw," etc. Very quietly and calmly stating the truth and not going on in long paragraphs. Or, "I beg your pardon. I did not understand what you said. Would you please repeat it?" Which forces the person who is carrying on to have to shout it all over again and perhaps feel like a fool in the process. The point is to say this in calmness with the sacred fire breath and then once again be still. Then it may become necessary 2 or 3 minutes later to once again say something very quietly, very softly to still the troubled waters of a brother or a sister. Now you know your own God control. And if in the process of speaking you get agitated, and your voice begins to change pitch. It gets high, it gets rapid, your breathing gets fast, you are losing your bass, and you have to be quiet. Start counting to 9 again, do your visualization, be silent. Whatever else is going on, go back and reestablish your peace. Now, you should not use this exercise as a point of pride. When a poor, unsuspecting soul has become victimized by a riptide, you don't put your head in the air and stomp off and walk away because it is beneath you and leave that poor person in a state of absolute chaos. You may have to walk away from danger, and it may become entirely necessary to do so. But you don't treat people of seeming lesser attainment as though they were so far beneath you that you don't even deign now to consider their plight. You must rule with compassion. And you must try to remain with a person until you have assisted him in the reestablishing of his calm center and force field. And so you become the person of the therapist or the teacher or the parent or the good friend that sees a person through a very difficult storm. So be humble before the God in people and very bold before human creation. And boldness is often the quietness, because the person who is palpitating with this energy is no doubt speaking very loudly. So it will do no good to speak as loudly as that person is speaking. You will only match the energy and get into the riptide. But if you cannot answer softly, quietly, and in God control, if you don't have your God control, then you do have to seal the mouth until you have established this attunement. Inasmuch as there are always riptides present, floating about, this little count to 9 decree, given just 3 times, is a good way to start the day, combining it with your tube of light. It becomes necessary for us to do so because of the rising tide of energy for which we are called upon to hold a balance. I'm going to dismiss you for lunch now with a sealing invocation, and after lunch, Summit University will return to hear the recent dictation of the Ascended Master Cuzco so that you can tune into his vibration and his instruction. I saw him this morning sitting in his retreat, which is at Vitilehu in the Fiji chain. It's an old Lemurian retreat. They do not admit unascended chelas to that retreat. The retreat is the focal point for the holding of the balance of all earth currents. It's the station that monitors the rise and fall of emotional energies, karmic patterns, weather conditions, cataclysm, earthquake, everything from the center of the earth to the periphery, and the rising and the falling of the temperatures of these very delicate patients which occupy the earth planet. The society, the sick society, and the sick souls who are in such a state of discord and turbulence that at any moment, when they become aligned all in one direction, as in war, or as in great grief, like you have national grief when you have a president assassinated, and everybody is on that same wavelength, it actually shifts the balance of the earth. The heavy amount of karma on the earth resulted in the tilting of the earth's axis, the ice ages, and the transmutation of that karma is intended to bring the total realignment. So Surya and Cuzco have that service with many ascended masters serving with them. And the God Star actually has an anchor point in Cuzco's retreat. There is a ray of energy, a link to the God Star. And as you know, the symbol of the eagle in the United States goes back to the mighty eagle of the God Star. The nation America is intended to hold the flame of Sirius as the focal point of Sanat Kumara. The Pleiades, as you know, also play a part in the release of light. So if you'll stand now, I'll give us the sealing invocation.
In the name of the I am that I am, I call to the great hierarchy of the ruby ray. Beloved Sanat Kumara, beloved Lord Gautama Buddha, beloved Lord Maitreya, beloved Lord Jesus Christ. I call for the intensity of the ruby ray, the full light of Surya and Cuzco, for the sealing of these souls, for greater soul awareness, for the invincible force field of light, to guard the aura of every light bearer upon the planet, to make each one a force field of light, to seal the impervious armor of light, the tube of light, the wall of blue flame, the violet flame, and the ring pass not, almighty ring pass not. Seal the solar plexus, seal the throat chakra, seal the third eye, seal now the entire force field of each chela, and let each one become then wise as serpents and harmless as doves. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, and the Mother, the entire spirit of the Great White Brotherhood, mighty Surya and Cuzco, let the light of Suva, let the light of Sirius blaze forth, seal each one, and give impetus to each one's great God mastery on the path. I call it forth. I accept it on this hour in full power, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, and the Mother, in the name of the Brotherhood of Light. Amen.